Great people.
Thank you, sir.
Great
Mr.
people.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
I wanna...
Are you a Kurd?
President Trump took questions from two Kurdish journalists during his press conference at the United Nations Wednesday, and the way he addressed those journalists sparked some backlash.
Yes, please, Mr. Kurd.
You know, I kind of understood why people found that offensive. Singling out one's identity, just one identity in a person, doesn't seem right. You know, what the response didn't actually get was the context. Calling Kurdish people Mr. Kurd was not offensive at all.
Namo Abdullah is the DC bureau chief for the Kurdish media outlet Rudaw, and like the Kurdish journalists at the press conference, he doesn't think Trump's use of Mr. Kurd is offensive.
Kurdish identity has been denied in the Middle East for at least a century. So when you call somebody Mr. Kurd, for a Kurdish person, that is recognizing that identity that has long been denied by different Middle Eastern governments. From the reactions I've seen on social media from the Kurdish people, it was an indirect message to the dictators in the Middle East, to President Erdogan of Turkey, to Khamenei in Iran, to Bashar Assad in Syria. Maybe President Trump didn't mean to send that message, but it was a message that Kurdish identity does exist. Kurdish people do exist, and their rights must be recognized.
In his actual answers, Trump effusively praised the Kurdish people for their role in the fight against the so-called Islamic State in Syria, or ISIS.
They died for us and with us and for themselves. We don't forget. I don't forget what happens someday later, but I can tell you that I don't forget.
I can imagine a lot of Kurds were happy with his overall answer, praising the bravery of the Kurdish forces against the Islamic State.
Kurdish militias in Syria have been one of the most reliable U.S. proxies for pushing back ISIS, and the U.S. has offered military aid to those groups in return. But for Kurds in the region, the next big question is what will happen after the fight against ISIS is concluded.
So that's actually a huge fear among the Kurds, that once the fight against the Islamic State is over, which is, we were almost there, the Kurds will be disposable. And the United States will pull out of the Middle East, and then the Kurds will be left to the mercy of these authoritarian governments. You don't really have a lot of pro-American forces in that part of the world. The Kurdish people stand out as one of the most pro-American forces. They're liberal, they're secular, women and men fight on the front lines against ISIS. The Kurdish people, I think, would even be happy to see a permanent US military base in both Iraq and Syria. They see that as a safeguard against all the hostile powers or regimes in the Middle East.